Awesome. It's Thursday, October 22nd, and this is the fourth Filecoin Core Devs meeting. And first agenda item is reviewing open FIP PRs, one of which is around reward vesting. Wyatt, you want to walk us through this quickly?
Yeah, cool. So a little bit of motivation. Pre-commit takes a fair amount of gas if you measure up total gas used. So I've been looking at space gaps, gas tallying. It averages over the last 3 epochs. You see around 20% of total gas used by pre-commit. We don't have as good measurements of the percentage of gas taken by vesting, but if you do a quick average, I did this morning just like five first pre-commits I saw in a gas trace, and I saw like 30%. And there's some variance up to between like 0 if a miner doesn't have any reward, and like about 50 for miners with big gas tables or big locked funds tables. So that overall, if we could stop vesting during pre-commit, that gives us between like 4 and 10, maybe higher % of total gas used system-wide per epoch reduction, which would be really nice. And the change is very simple. If you take a look at FIP issue 18, Alex lays out the proposal, which doesn't just include pre-commit, but also confirmed sector proof valid, just the callback that gets hit during proof commit. So the basic idea is to just not vest, not unlock funds which have vested, which means we don't have to load up the big array and then store it back, which is where all the gas cost comes in. And the downside is pretty low. There's going to be, the one downside is that there's an extra 30 minutes where the funds will not vest. So if a miner was hoping to make use smoothly and automatically for that last 30 minutes between when funds automatically vest during deadlines and pre-commit, then they would have to automatically unvest or automatically vest the funds from the locked funds table. And there's like a method for doing that with potentially some downsides. But yeah, that's like a 1 30-minute window. That's also really going to only impact people who are only taking funds, who are relying solely on pre-commit funds coming straight from their vesting table. So all in all, it seems like a pretty solid win. Yeah, and the implementation is just to guard the loading and unvesting of funds and saving back with a protocol version number. So we're talking about like, I don't know, like 10, 15 lines of code, at most. Yeah, I'd love to take any questions. I'm guessing it's all pretty straightforward to y'all though.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. The only question I have is, do you guys have a like PR for the change in the spec actors for like this proposed change, or have you not done that?
Haven't done it yet. As far as I know, we haven't done it. Yeah. We'll link here though, or we'll link somewhere visible when we do.
Awesome. Any other questions for Wyatt about the change? Any feelings of pros and cons across other implementations?
Steven, do you have any? I feel like Steven might have some different opinion here. Just make sure that we hear him. Is there? What do you think about this proposal? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's because it will save the gas and yeah. Well, I'm looking into the code. I say there are many places. Yeah, there are the unvesting core there. Yes, not so necessary, I would think. Yeah, I think it's a very good proposal. Let's do it.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah. Overall wins of making it less expensive for everyone to do stuff on the chain seems good. Seems like we'll probably find more of these, so will not be the last change of this kind. But awesome. Sounds like we're kind of all thumbs up on moving forward with this. Sound good?
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Cool. So I think we'll work on actually PRing that up, and we'll share that back with the group once we have a draft. And that will not be for the current state upgrade that's in the works, but for the next one, we'll aim to get that one in. Cool. I don't believe we have any other open FIP PRs, correct? Anyone? Nope. Then the next thing is upcoming state upgrades. So Lotus v1.1.0 is going to be triggering later today in about like 4 or 5 hours. So that one has FIP 0004 in it, which unlocks 25% of bulk reward immediately and vests the other 75%. And so I think the majority of the community has upgraded, but it's a small upgrade, and so we're not super concerned about it, but things are continuing there. So that's our next upcoming state upgrade at the moment. Any questions, thoughts on that side? Nope, cool. Looks like we don't have Raoul yet. So maybe let's hop into updates from the various implementations and just anything that's relevant for this group or any, especially any questions for across implementations would be great. Magic, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm not sure what was the previous update because I wasn't here last time. So I guess let me find the recent changelog. Well, since mainnet basically we're in like maintenance mode, not merging much and just monitoring and fixing issues as they popped up, but there really wasn't much at all relevant to this group, as probably only the current upgrade with the vesting change. And I don't think there is anything else as of now.
Yeah, I think focus on stability, performance improvements, working with the community to debug any issues, but also decreasing rate of change, which is good and what we've been aiming for. So
I have a question for Magic. Actually, someone has mentioned, I think it was you, or maybe someone else on the previous meetings, that Magic is working on drastically improving the mining speed. Any update on that?
There's a PR in Filecoin that's coming from the proofs team. Yeah, that PR is open. It's ready for testing. It's apparently triggering some issues for some people on some GPUs with some drivers. Pretty specific. It works most of the time, but we still need to fix like this bug and one other slightly annoying bug with Go not wanting to link HW like library aesthetically. But yeah, other than that, there is a PR open in Filecoin which updates it and makes everything faster.
Magic, you also have a set of improvements to the like Lotus miner code that have been like in the works, and you're like taking chunks of it.
Yeah, that's roughly ready. Well, it is ready. The basic change is that the miner to worker communication is now based on HTTP and it's async, among a couple of other changes. And yeah, it's basically now just waiting for the team to review it.
Wait, sorry, did you say you're switching the miner to daemon communication from WebSockets to HTTP?
No, that one is still on WebSockets. The worker to miner is on HTTP now.
I see. Cool, thanks.
And well, yeah, miner to daemon won't work on HTTP right now. Could try, but it will break horribly.
Yeah, I figured because it has to like follow the chain head, right? So
yeah, there are some channels that we sent over WebSockets.
Awesome. Cool. Any other questions for Lotus from other implementations? Then moving on to Forest.
Awesome. So updates, pretty much we've been focused on interop. Really proud of the team for getting to this point. We are passing all valid conformance vectors, which is great. And we did the upgrade to v0.9.12 for actors. And so we're now able to sync up to this space race export of block 36. And it seems like it's just a small issue there. So things are looking really good from an interop perspective. So next steps for interop would actually be, after we fix that one issue, to sync space race by actually connecting to the network rather than using an export. And we're hoping that the results will be the same. Other than that, we are continuing with the storage miner and markets integrations. So for storage miner, we've been running a local DevNet and resolving issues as they come up. So we added versioning for storage miner and JWT authentication. And for markets, once we're done the pay channel implementation, which is very close, we add the pay channel RPC and should have integration with Go fill markets. We are holding off on the upgradability for actors, just because our main goal is to sync with mainnet. And so since we can do that using a snapshot, we will just do the upgrade to V2, and just anyone who wants to use our node can use a snapshot. And then in the future, we will add the upgradability logic. And this just gets us to syncing mainnet as quickly as possible. But yeah, that's about it for us. Any questions, thoughts, anything to add, Austin?
Yeah, that pretty much covers it. I guess the only kind of clarification I'd make is that we are also syncing against Lotus. Like, we're not just like validating a car file. And the issue that we're running into now is just a simple chain exchange thing. So I'm not sure exactly how many blocks you can sync, but everything seems kind of clear. And as Amar mentioned, we're passing all test vectors. So.
I'm sure Raul plans to make your life better and harder imminently with even more chain related test vectors. So
I'm already up to date with all the most recent ones, but yeah, if the block sequence ones come and everything like that, maybe we'll hear an update from him soon. I'm eager to hear it.
Awesome. Cool. We'll have to in 2 seconds, Raul. We'll finish out updates. Maxim, you want to tell us about Fuhan?
Yeah, sure. So we also on the stage where we are trying to sync with the mainnet of Filecoin with Lotus mainly. We have passed all the conformance tests which are not disabled. We have also started making, we have our legacy actors which were developed initially for version 0.2 as far as I remember, and they were compatible back then. We decided that we need to start making them compatible, our own implementation of actors compatible with the current Lotus version. So we're currently working on that. As for the current state of interop, we also basically we are able to connect to the mainnet, get the information, but currently there are some issues with a head which has been chosen by our node, not chosen, but stepped up by our node. So we are currently working out on what is the issue. I think that's mostly it. If everyone else from the team has something to add, feel free. I think that's it.
Awesome. Any questions for Fuhan team? Cool. And Stephen, Venus.
Okay. Yeah, still we're focusing on the Venus to interoperate with Lotus, and we're still using the space race and the mandate chain to actually directly to sync with the chain. After some time, we fixed some issues, and right now we could, we are now about 20,000 height to sync to the Lotus chain, and there is also also a long way to go. But as we already fixed a lot of things. But we were facing a challenge is that the chain syncing is not so quick. So it's very slow. So we want to improve our hardware, especially the I/O performance. So we are and actually we'll change the chain to another hardware with the SSD drive, NVMe drive, and with better CPU. And we think that from the 20,000 to 150,000 or like this is just a time of work. We need to move on and to say if there are any issues, we just fix it. That's one thing, and we think that it is really painful for us to sync from the height 0 to 100,000, something like this. So we plan to also use a snapshot and to set a checkpoint, and which makes this thing is easier. And I heard that some implementation already use the snapshot, but we are still working on that. If you already have a tool to make a snapshot, we can directly use that. If any of you can provide that kind of tool, that would be very wonderful for us. And sixth, and also we have next plans to how to build the Venus implementation. Actually, as I mentioned in the lift of shoe, is that I mentioned that we will have separated components of the whole implementation. For example, we have right now we're working on the chain syncer, which just do the chain validation and syncing and provide the chain information to other components, and we could have another messenger to just as a tool with the with CLI and provide better UX for users, and which can actually need a person to send out to make a message and send out the message, something like that. And we could have also minor separated and also senior separated, something like this. So based on this, we plan to have 1 or 2 more people to join the team and to catch up all of this. Okay, and that's all. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, modularity helps a lot. I believe Lotus already has all of the snapshotting tooling available, which is how we're doing snapshots that Russ and other folks are using.
There is a Lotus chain export command, and you can just use this command to export the chain with whatever parameters you want.
Okay, sure. So I can. Okay, and I can reach you offline and to get more detail about this. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think that's even documented in Filecoin docs.
Yeah, we've been using it. It's pretty straightforward and it works well. Just exports a car file.
Awesome. Sounds good. Cool. Any questions for Stephen and Venus? It's great. You guys are all making awesome up the chain progress, syncing away. Super snazzy. Probably maybe still a little bit early, but probably the next thing to think about across implementations is like, you know, once we're getting to a point where a lot of groups are hitting kind of a similar set of things, we might want to try having a DevNet with all of the implementations all syncing up to a portion of the chain together, and then starting to think about bringing miners onto some of these implementations to test things out. Definitely for when we started up the interop net between Filecoin and Lotus, like back in, I think that was May, June timeframe, discovered a whole ton of problems. It was March?
It was back in March.
Wow.
We were still in Vancouver.
Pre-pandemic times for us. Crazy. So I'm sure we'll discover a lot more interesting challenges once we have other people trying to sync with these nodes, run the miner on all different kinds of hardware. That's always super fun. So still relatively early days, but something to think about there is like, yeah, usability and actually starting to have other groups pick up the code and potentially use it without full understanding of the internals, and hopefully get it to work.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to have a test net with, I guess specifically only like after mainnet network versions, just because yeah, testing interop would be so much easier for I guess all of us without having a snapshot past the space race export.
Yep. Yeah, let's plan to do that. I guess once people hit the spec actors v2, let's spin up a DevNet and start hammering each other in something that has a nice small chain, but we can see what goes wrong. Should be fun. Cool. All right, Rowold, shall we hop back over to you? You can tell us about all the exciting new things coming out in vector land to actually help us be interoperable and reach that milestone.
Yeah, I just presented at Liftoff week in the research and engineering track, and I gave all of you a shout out. So great job on accomplishing that like incredible milestone of having all test vectors passing. I think I heard this from Forrest, but did I hear right that Fuhan also has all test vectors passing? That's amazing. That's incredible. Great job there.
Except the ones that were disabled, but I don't think they're necessary for now.
Yeah, honestly, those should be scrapped entirely. So yeah, because nobody's using them, but it's good to have a pin on them anyway. Yeah, awesome. That's great. Okay, so the update that I wanted to give is you've all probably seen it, but kind of like for the official record, we now have multivariant vectors. So this is our generator scripts are running against all known protocol versions and generating vector variants and then merging the equivalent ones into multi-variant vectors. So basically now when you run a test vector, you have an array of, in the preconditions block, you have an array of the network versions and epochs that it needs to run with against. And those epochs are anchor epochs or base epochs. And then every single epoch within the apply blocks are actually offsets on top of that epoch. So that makes for a very elegant system where we can like run vectors through many protocol versions at once and make sure that the client is compatible with them. Also, there is a selector. So it like as implementers develop develop support for new protocol versions, you probably deliberately don't want to run those that are targeting protocol versions that you still don't support. So because that would give you like failures and like known failures. So we add a selector string so you can filter out those vectors which you don't have protocol support for yet. So that's kind of like for the official record. And stuff that we're working on right now is should be merged by the end of this week. We've just been pretty caught up with Liftoff and other things. but we have a new Tvx Simulate command, which allows you to craft a raw message and play it against any height on the chain, and it generates a vector, and it also generates a state diff to show you exactly what that message produced, the impact of that message. So this is useful for us to test those messages, those kinds of messages that haven't still, or those like edge cases that haven't still made it on chain, because it allows us to like synthetically create those messages and test it against the state of the actual network. Other things that are gonna land is a Tvx project command, which allows us to take a vector or many vectors and project those vectors on top of a new protocol version. If it works and the post conditions are met, then we in place update that vector and add the new variant. If not, we fail, and that allows us to like very clearly know if a particular functionality has been affected by a protocol version. And that's pretty much it. For block sequence vectors, we caught up with a bunch of things, and we haven't really made substantial progress on that front. I know this is something that we definitely want. So hopefully we'll be having another update to share in the next weeks. Once again, kudos on passing all vectors. That's amazing. Amazing job.
Thanks so much, Raul. That's super exciting. I'm really excited for these TVX commands because that'll make testing upgrades just way easier. One of the challenges we had with one of the previous upgrades is that it was, I guess, a spec actors upgrade. We'd run it a lot, but running it on the real chain took longer than running it on other chains. And that was something we wish we'd tested even more thoroughly. And now we have the tools for it.
Yep. Yep. Highly inspired by kind of like the gaps in our testing workflow that I've detected. Yeah.
Love it. Any questions for Raul or nudges for him for like, oh my God, we really need this? Nope, everyone's happy. You guys are all, these folks are hot on your tail, your tail roll. So lots to, I'm sure as you keep running forward, they'll keep sprinting behind you, which is exactly perfect. So thanks so much. Awesome. Cool. Last thing on our agenda was reviewing open changes to the FIP process. First one on the list was issue 16 by Ian, who was discussing the fact that current FIP numbering is a little confusing, where you're supposed to open a PR, but you don't have a name yet, and that when you change the name of the FIP, it starts changing the link to the FIP itself. And so we had this challenge with FIP3 and FIP4, where they got merged in the opposite order, and then they switched numbering. And so we linked to one of them to have people comment on it, and suddenly it was pointing to the other one. It was like a little bit confusing. So the suggestion here is to amend FIP1 such that instead of starting with a PR, you start with a GitHub issue, and from the GitHub issue, you get like thumbs up to go and create a PR with a FIP number associated with it within the issue, which allows you to then have a choose your FIP numbering ahead of time for your PR, so that your PR URL doesn't change. I think mostly meta coordination level, but anyone have thoughts, concerns?
I kind of just have a question out of curiosity. What's the reason for why the order of the FIPs that come in have to be ordered, why they have to be ordered by the number they come in? Like, why do you have to switch the number of the ones of 3 and 4? Like, what's the negative to having them, I guess, come in different orders?
Well, we definitely want to avoid duplicates. So we don't want to have 2 FIP4s, and it would create the possibility of hitting 2 at the same time. I guess you could technically skip a number if, for example, one of them is not accepted as a draft. So someone's like, great, I'm creating FIP4, but then, it's not accepted because you know, it's not ready yet or some other reason. And so we just actually create but now FIP5 has already been drafted and PR'd. And so then we just skip over it potentially and create a hole in the numbering. Holes are better than duplicates. But yeah, right now the FIP1 process does, the number is supposed to be assigned by the FIP editor who like reviews it for correctness and decides whether it's accepted, instead of by the person who's PRing the change itself. And that does make a little bit of, that changes the URL of the thing you're linking to, unfortunately. So something there needs to change. That maybe is an alternate proposal, which is just when you file the FIP, you choose the right next number, and we figure it out later if there's gaps or collisions. Use DRAN to generate FIP numbers. More suggestions. Those would be harder to remember, hard to type in, hard URLs. I'm generally pro on the idea of starting things with a GitHub issue, because we already need a GitHub issue to discuss anyway. And so it seems like a relatively small change, and maybe we can trial it and see how it goes with the next couple of FIPs. If that sounds good to people. Cool, awesome. We'll move forward with that. Writing that one down. Cool. And then the other one is about the integration with the spec process. Yannis, you want to talk us through that, and feel free to show us anything if that's easier.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as I've presented in one of the previous meetings, and as you've probably seen, there has been a huge effort that was put in to update the spec, which is kind of running the risk of running out of date again if all those wonderful FIPs are not integrated into, do not change the spec as well. So we really don't want this to happen, because it's much easier to change it bit by bit when the FIP is in process, rather than later after a few months trying to integrate 100 FIPs on top of each other and creating another mess. So it's really important for everyone who wants to create a new FIP, as part of the process, to submit another PR to the spec repository for the changes that need to be done to the spec. Of course, this does not apply to every FIP, but at least for the technical ones, we should have a parallel PR to the spec process. Now, what we want to do in the end is that on the spec side, we want to have extended dashboards in order to have on each section which FIPs have touched on this and edited this. And effectively, we want to have nice versioning, kind of a like time machine, where you go back when before FIP 114 was integrated, what did the spec look like? And that would be, of course, all of the spec, but especially it would focus on the specific section that this FIP touched on. So there is currently PR number 11 in the FIP repository. It's not merged. There is kind of ongoing discussion on how that would happen. There is a little process. It's not too complicated. Basically, before something is either accepted or final or merged, there should be some evidence that there is a FIP PR on the spec side as well, and the guy, the team or the person responsible for the FIP authors, do an update to the spec. In order to be able to, automate the process, what we did was that we have assigned a unique identifier to each section that the FIP is going to touch on. And of course, it's not necessary that the FIP is only touching one section. It might touch multiple. It doesn't matter. This identifier will go to the front matter of the FIP itself, and the spec repository will pick it up from the front matter there, and that's how we're going to create all the extra features that we want on the spec side. So that's the summary. Hugo is also around. I don't know if we want to give, if there's any more detail into it. Yeah, it's just here to raise the flag, basically, that, whenever you do a FIP, please bear that in mind. And also put your opinions on the PR. If you think something should be different, just let's discuss it. It's just a proposal.
Awesome. So like the workflow change from a FIP creator perspective would be when writing the FIP, look through the spec, figure out which sections of the spec your PR is touching or changing. So like, for example, with the one that we just talked about this morning, we'd look at like gas section, actors section, rate which of those sections are being touched, grab the little link. Hugo, I love your GIF in the PR to link to that section, put that in the front matter of the FIP itself, add to the FIP section around spec, like what you're changing, or is there a new section within the FIP description itself for like what has changed, like a link to a PR to the spec or something like that?
I can do
it doesn't need to. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, it doesn't really need to, because we will be able to process all the markdown from the FIP PR itself, which we actually just need the labels in the markdown, in the FIP markdown, just that. So I can even, like, in 2 seconds, just give you a rundown on how easy you can. Are you seeing the spec website?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you go to the dashboard, which is like this section here, you can kind of run through the main top level sections of the whole spec. So let's say you want to do a FIP that changes something in the state tree. So you go to the state tree, you click here, and then you copy paste this stuff. Or if it touches multiple ones, you kind of copy paste all of them and put an array in the front matter, and it's done. After that, we kind of need to have at least one like test FIP PR, so we can make sure everything works. But the base process and our ideas, it's all just this. All the FIP writer needs to do, just go to the main index, copy paste the labels like this, put in an array in a font matter, and it's done. Then we do the integration and we pick it up automatically. It's all automatic. You don't need to do anything else.
Also,
and do the amendment in the
yeah, the PR to change the spec itself then is like separate. Cool. Anyone have thoughts, comments, concerns? Seems relatively lightweight. I also like the idea of being able to zoom in time back to like FIP v what before and after various changes. So that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. We should think about it, imagine what it's going to be like in 10 years from now, and a few thousand FIPs. So that it's going to be really interesting to have that.
Thousands of FIPs later. It's exciting.
Yeah, really important, like the release cycle on the spec itself is going to be really done in parallel with FIPs. Like other changes are going to be like small. Everything will come from the FIPs. Every change from when we mostly stable right now, every change to the spec itself, to the content, will come from FIPs. So the versioning is really tied to the FIP process.
On that topic, I was just wondering, is there any thought into when there's going to be a more regular hard fork cycle? It's kind of been like very sporadic, like just like sometimes I think there's like 5 hard forks in the last like month and a half or something. I was wondering if there's going to be a regular cadence, because that's going to affect how the specs get released too, right? So
yeah, I think we're going to be somewhat asymptotically decreasing there, where like, starting out from a pretty agile perspective, like right now, yeah, pre-mainnet, we had like one like every week and a half or something, which is pretty fast and definitely not sustainable in the long term. So I think we're gonna, like, probably for the next couple of months, be aiming for something like once a month in a good case. You know, of course, you never know when things come up that we really want to get in faster, but I think that is probably decent for like the first three to 6 months, and then probably moving to more of a quarterly cadence after that. I think that we don't want to have like specific deadlines and times and a schedule or anything like that, but just trying to aim for ourselves to get to a point where we're bundling more changes is just going to make work easier for all of us to stay in sync as well. So yeah, I think probably it'll be, you know, aiming towards monthly for the next 3 to 6 months. Yeah, when you say, Hugo, about the versioning of the spec tied to versioning of FIPS, is there anything we need to add to the PR around as a FIP editor when you change a FIP to accepted to go and merge the spec PR associated with it, just to make sure that those things happen in sync? Maybe that's already in your PR, but just making sure that those things stay tied to each other. Is there going to be an actual version number in the spec that we're going to be bumping or anything like that?
There isn't right now, but I think we should, the FIP editor basically, before they hit the merge button for the FIP, they should check that a PR is at least in progress. You know, maybe there is ongoing discussion in the spec, you know, for phrasing and editorial stuff, but that's okay. As long as the main part of the work has been done, it should be okay. But it's up to the editor, I think. That's the best approach. But yeah, if we missed that, please add to the PR. I think it's there. It's been discussed.
Cool. I think we can probably take the discussion from there to the PR, but generally seems like a really good change, and excited for the proactive thinking for how we are going to keep the spec up to date across implementations.
Excellent, thank you.
Awesome. That is it for our scheduled agenda. I don't believe we have any other issues or changes. Refreshing the issues page to make sure. Yep, nope. Anyone else have anything to add to our agenda or that folks want to discuss? Cool. Well, thank you all so much for presenting during liftoff. It's been awesome. It's going to be continuing to be a really awesome week. Definitely tune in the rest of today and tomorrow. Still a lot of really phenomenal talks. There's going to be some cool stuff coming out with in Juan and Brewster Kale's fireside chat in a couple of hours. So check that one out. But other than that, things seem smooth sailing with the upcoming upgrade. And yeah, from here it's hardening stability, improving, you know, syncing, as Stephen was mentioning. Lots of fun, little but very important things happening.
Yeah, there are lots of folks actually, and so we need to handle all of this. Yeah, just need some time to do all this.
State upgrades, yeah, definitely. Always more work to do on that, and you know, always trying to make things better. So that helps as well.
Yeah, there's just one thing I want to, okay, next meeting, and actually I say the, daylight saving time ends, right? So, and the, time of change. So the next meeting will be 1 hour later, or is there any, better time for the team here?
Yeah, it's a good point. That is it is based on the schedule. It is at 5 p.m. UTC instead of at 4 p.m. UTC because of daylight savings time. does China doesn't do daylight savings time? I'm just trying to, because that we're staying in the sweet spot between it is insanely late for you and relatively early for PT.
Yeah, we don't have that. So yeah, it's for me just 1 hour later.
Oof. Oof, oof. Well, maybe this is the nudge for me to hand this off to someone else who then starts running these meetings going forward, such that I'm no longer the blocker of waking up insanely early in the morning. But I think we can try to make it 1 hour earlier if that works for other folks. For those of us who do follow daylight savings time, such that it stays at 4 p.m. UTC, because I know that's already still super late for China. Cool. So maybe I'll hand it off to someone on the East Coast because it's more reasonable over there. All right, I'll switch that going forward. Thank you for bringing that up, Stephen. That would have been confusing.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of which, a happy Q4 and daylight savings time to everyone. It's fall. It's crazy. Awesome. Anything else? No? Then have a wonderful Thursday, and we'll see you around in all the talks. Hang out in Gather Town in our little lounge, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, friends.
Bye.